GoldBroker.com own real physical gold and silver bars stored outside of the banking system.
Hello, my name is Popescu, and on behalf of GoldBroker.com, I have the pleasure today to interview Willem Middelkoop, founder and manager of the Commodity Discovery Fund and author of the bestseller, The Big Reset. Good afternoon, Willem.
Hello, Dan. How are you?
Fine, you?
Merry Christmas.
Yes. Willem, you wrote an excellent book, and it's very timely to review it at this moment because you deal not only with gold, but with the international monetary system and the role of gold in that. You wrote a book about, it's an excellent book that I recommend to everybody. Very well written, simple to understand, and I see that it was translated in Chinese and also Arabic, which shows where the interest for gold is. So could you review for us the main idea in your book? It's now about what you wrote it about a year ago.
Yeah, I finished the book at the end of 2013, so that's 1 year ago. Actually, the book has a few themes. One is the war on gold, that there's suppression of the gold price from the US. Well, read my book if you want to know the details, but I continue for 40, 50 pages. Another part of the book is concerning the worldwide international financial system, and it's my thesis that after the reset, which we've seen in 1944 with the Bretton Woods Conference, well, actually the world's in need of another monetary reset because well, the dollar as the main world reserve currency, I think the time is almost finished. Time is almost over for the dollar in this well, as the only world reserve currency, and we see China knocking on the door of the US and the IMF, and China is well, China wants to be part of the international monetary system, and they have their own ideas about how a future system should look like.
Last week, actually, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, United States decided not to finance the International Monetary Fund. Was that a surprise for you? Seems that from what I see, Barack Obama, who the president of the United States, who actually negotiated a deal with the IMF, didn't seem to be very enthusiastic to defend it, to fight for it in Congress and in the Senate. It seems that, yeah, he wanted it, but he really was not too much enthusiastic. How do you see the role of the United States and also the reaction of China, Russia concerning the international monetary system?
Well, you could say there's a kind of power struggle going on within the IMF. China and Russia are asking for a bigger seat at the table. The US, of course, tries to delay this development, and that's the reason why things aren't moving that rapidly in Washington. So Obama, of course, has to promise especially to the Chinese, that things will change into a larger seat for China at the table. But as said, in Washington, the powers that be, you know, they want to control the current system, and they want to delay the changes.
Professor Mundell, Nobel Prize of Economics, wrote a few years ago that United States will come to the negotiating table kicking and screaming, and will try to make sure that any change will not be far away from the present system of the dollar exorbitant privilege. Do you think that they will try to sabotage it? And can China and the world community do an international system without United States, like the metric system was?
Well, I think China is playing chess on two different boards. China is cooperating with the US within the IMF, but China is also putting pressure on the IMF and the US by working together with the other BRIC nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, of course, and South Africa. And they made public that they want to start their own development bank. China's taking the lead, and this new development bank could be seen as a competitor for the IMF. But I think China is putting more pressure on the US, putting more pressure on the IMF by walking along with the other BRIC countries and showing the US that if the US and the IMF is not moving fast enough into their direction, they can do it alone. They can do it in their own way. and they can work together with the BRIC countries and start their own major international development bank.
Willem, you're in Europe, and we've heard in the last few weeks, last month, a lot of repatriation procedures by Europeans. The Holland caught everybody by surprise. And it came actually after both Germany, Holland, other countries saying they have no interest, that gold is very well in New York.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we find out that several European countries, mostly European countries, are actually not consistent with their public statement. In public statements, they some kind of saying that they supported the United States, and behind the doors they're just repatriating and trying to bring it back. How do you explain that?
Well, actually, I wrote an opinion piece myself for the main Dutch national newspaper in 2009. Actually, it was the only real opinion editorial I ever wrote for a national newspaper. And in that piece, I simply asked the Dutch government to repatriate the Dutch gold because there were so many signs that the US was, well, you could say, selling every bar of gold a few times. So there were more owners than one owner for the old gold bars, which are held into the vaults of the New York Federal Reserve. And I think we've seen the same development in some other countries here in Europe. We've seen a grassroots development within Germany, Switzerland, the Netherlands, also Belgium, because well, just the normal citizens, they understand that there's some fault play in the gold market, and I think many people in Europe have become concerned about the safety of our national gold holdings in the US, and we simply don't trust the US anymore.
How do you see the events after? I was surprised after the Swiss referendum because we have to accept that it was a big defeat for the pro-gold camp. The referendum was clear against against gold, the gold initiative, and in the same the days that followed, gold not only it didn't go down, but it spiked up, completely surprising because I expected, with such a negative vote, that the momentum will be with the bears, and it didn't happen. Could that be the end of the bear market in gold?
Well, I wasn't surprised at all because I always said we can only win. We win when the Swiss say yes to the gold initiative, and we win when the Swiss say no to the initiative, because there's so much discussion now in Europe because of this gold initiative in Switzerland. And I think that's a win for our camp. Our camp is the camp of the hard money, and people who are very concerned with the current monetary experiments. And I think the gold price has clearly shown to be very, very strong. We see huge demand when gold goes under 1180. We've seen a triple bottom at 1180 in the last year, and actually we've only been below 1180 for just a couple of weeks. So there's huge demand from India, there's huge demand from China, there's increasing demand from Russia, and the demand of these three countries combined now are larger than worldwide gold mine production. So prices can't keep going lower when demand for physical gold is that high. Even with all the paper selling, even with all the manipulation on the COMEX, at one point, the ball is pushed too deep underwater, and you only can go up from that point.
Do you expect that we'll close above or below 1200?
If you follow the gold price in the last few weeks, you're quite sure that the forces which try to keep gold under 1200 are very, very strong, and we saw a surprise attack on the gold price even last night, and it's quite sure that they'll try to keep gold under 1200. But everybody is looking at the gold price in dollars, but look at the gold price in yen, look at the gold price in ruble, look at the gold price in euro. In euros, gold is up almost 20% this year. So I think it's a question of time before gold price in dollar will also start to rise.
You manage a commodity fund, so you also buy, I imagine, stocks gold and silver stocks. How do you view it seems the industry is in big trouble. I think that the index, the Barron's index, it's at the lowest level in 40 years, 40, 50 years. Do you think that they will give the signal to the upside, or are gold, silver stocks going to follow?
No, we already have reached the bottom, and the best evidence for this you can find if you look at the best gold stock. What's the best gold stock? What's the best quality, the highest quality gold listed company? And that's Royal Gold. Royal Gold is a streaming company, royalty streaming company. And if you look at their chart, I think they're up 50-60% from their lows last year. So this tells me the bottom is in. The people who are insiders, they know that gold can only rise from this level, and so the best stocks, the best listed equities in the gold and silver space, they're being bought right now, and most of them are trading above their bottom levels, which we've seen in the last 12 months.
How do you see? I'm curious concerning China. You're quite familiar. We don't know very much about it. There are just statements by past presidents who are working in China concerning their reserves. We have no real numbers. We have no idea how much they put in. How do you see the Chinese strategy in the gold market, and how do you see the role they play right now in this fight, mostly with the United States on the gold market?
Well, when you read my book, and especially the last chapter about the big reset, in this book, I published so many comments by Chinese leaders published in the last few years in which they lay out that they want each and every Chinese to buy gold and silver. They really try to stimulate the gold and silver investments by the retail public. In China, there are over 100,000 retail outlets now which sell gold and silver. Many of them banks, who are deeply connected with the Communist Party and the state. My book will be published in China by a leading university, Renmin University in Beijing. And Renmin University is actually the university of the Communist Party. That's the university where the leadership and the new leadership of China is being educated. So this tells me that China also wants the story to go out, and we of course don't know how high the official gold reserves are of the People Bank of China, because this is a state secret. But chances are quite high that in 2015 the renminbi will be added to the special drawing rights of the IMF. And to become part of the IMF special drawing rights, the Chinese central bank, they will need to publish their financial reserves, including their gold reserves. I think the chances are quite high that within the next 12 months we'll learn how high the official gold reserves are of China. But we know from the trade figures that China in the last 6, 7, 8 years has imported a huge amount of gold. And last year, the physical trading was over 2,000 tons. This year we're close to 2,000 tons. So we have an incredible strong physical gold market in China.
May I ask you to end, if you want to risk a prediction of gold for next year, or how do you see it move in 2015?
Well, most important, I think, is to state that the gold price has bottomed. Maybe we can go a little lower, but it will be short term, will be a spike like we have seen in November and December. But I think chances are very high that finally we can break out of a long downtrend since 2011, and especially for silver. Silver is looking very explosive, very strong. In our fund, the Commodity Discovery Fund, we did a study on gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. Platinum and palladium are in short supply already, are in deficit already. Silver is in deficit already. And I wouldn't be surprised to see stories about shortage of physical silver in the next 12 to 18 months. And actually, we saw a press release by a Mexican small silver mine who has received 30 million US dollars from a Chinese company. And the Chinese only paid this money to be sure that they would receive enough silver in 2018 and 2019. And this tells me that Chinese are very, very concerned about the availability of silver in the years to come.
Thank you, William. I wished I had more time. I want to mention your book again, a great book to read, and it's still very timely. And on behalf of GoldBroker.com and myself, I wish to everybody happy holidays and a happy new year.
I agree with that. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye bye.